As I suspected, 32 flavors.
A few days ago, Eric July and Jimmy Palmiotti had a conversation on Eric July's For Canon's Sake podcast. And it was a really good conversation, and there was a lot of talk within an hour and 10 minutes, mostly from Mr. Palmiotti himself on his upbringing, history with comics, and what he did to help the company turn around back when they were filing for bankruptcy with Marvel Knights. And I feel like this conversation is more important than people realize, because although it was really good, really cordial, and I'd say productive in that regard, however, I don't think many people understand how important it was. And you're thinking, what do you mean by importance? Well, let me get to that, because Jimmy Palmiotti, if you follow him on like Twitter per se, you would kind of piece it together that he's very, very different politically from Ripa, because Ripa is a very hard libertarian, and Jimmy Palmiotti is very openly, very left-leaning on that. And you're thinking, okay, what does that have to do with anything? Maybe some of you have already even figured that out, especially if you're listening to this channel. You're a very smart individual for doing that. Palmiotti is very left, and Eric is very libertarian. And this is hopefully what I'm seeing is, and maybe this could be wishful thinking, but for me, I think it's a little bit more than that. I see this as incremental baby steps towards breaking down those barriers, per se. Barriers of all these things that constantly divide us, and finally look at the things that bring us together. When I got into stuff like comic books, per se, or TV shows, wrestling, movies, whatever, it was always about those things that brought us together, that made us bond, rather than the few things that we disagree on, making those the things that we look at first. And comics is a medium that I've always looked at for a lot of people. It doesn't matter if they're right, left, center. If we have that thing in common, we can have a lot of conversations off of that first. And if we somehow cross the barrier into politics, let's have fun with this. Have a few drinks about it. We'll argue about it and bicker about it like men, and we'll be friends afterwards. So I feel like this conversation was a little bit of that. Do I see that point where they might bicker around about politics but still be buddies? Yeah, I mean, Jeremy obviously is a huge Donald Trump fan from Geeks and Gamers, D-Day Cobra, and Ripa's pretty much not. I think this is great, and I hope this happens a little bit more. I hope we slowly start to see more of this happen, because I did see some initial skepticism in Ripa's community posts, and I think even on his Twitter handle, like, oh, hey, doesn't Jimmy Palmiotti like hate people like us? I don't know. Maybe he changed, or maybe people just didn't understand him. I don't know. I don't have that information, but I'm not really looking towards the past. I'm looking at where Jimmy Palmiotti is at now. And from what I hear, he's good buddies with guys like Mike Barron and Billy Tucci, and those guys are a lot more on the conservative side of things, which ultimately these things sadly shouldn't matter, but we're bringing them up for the conversation's sake that let's all make fucking great comics together. Let's all talk about great comics together. Let's look past this petty bullshit that is politics. Sure, let's have a conversation about it, but it should never, ever be the be-all, end-all. It doesn't matter if Joe Biden's office, it doesn't matter if Donald Trump, once again, he reclaims office in 2024. Should he do that? We need the comic books to be the conversation, and the politics is nothing more than a side thing. If anything, we should argue about politics the way we do about pizza. Fun meaning stuff that's almost kind of dumb, but at the end of the day, we shake hands, we drinks like men. So anyways, guys, let me know your thoughts on this conversation, if you see where I'm coming from. If you disagree, well, I'd like to hear from you too. Until then, you lay down your souls to the gods, rock and roll.
Barbecue, huh? How do you like your ribs?